everyone, welcome back to Title IX Insider. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Chris Aboy, and he is someone from the Virginia area that owns a TAG Muay Thai gym. Chris, would love for you to just share a little bit about yourself so that folks can know what we're about to talk about.
Hi guys, my name is Chris Aboy. I'm the owner of TAG Muay Thai. It's a Muay Thai gym. We have boxing, we have MMA, and we also do self-defense. Other things that I do is I work full-time as a federal police officer over there in DC. I've been there for over 24 years. I'll be retiring this coming November 30th.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And for everyone out there that is enjoying our conversations, please be sure you like and subscribe to us and or leave comments. And we will for sure share those with Chris if there's anything directly related to what he does and what we'll be talking about today. So to get us going, Chris, I would love to first start off talking a little bit about what it is that your gym teaches, especially when we think about prevention and tactical movement. I know that many times when we deal with the Title IX space, the Clary space, there's a lot of conversation about prevention education, ensuring folks know their options and things that they can do to feel safe and comply with things such as the annual security report, where institutions must be reporting the types of prevention education that they're doing. And so many times that includes self-defense classes and things of that nature. So can you share a little bit about what you might be doing at your gym for men, women, and children?
All right. So first off, we are a martial arts gym. We have, from the youngest from 2 years old all the way, around 60. We have women. So we actually do have a women's boxing class that we have. We also have a MMA class. So two of the instructors that we have over there, one's actually an air marshal. The other one used to be an MMA fighter, and they're both black belts under Helson. But for me, working in the law enforcement field, I don't want to have guys just restrict themselves just to grappling. I like our guys to be able to grapple and then also use their head to hit somebody, their elbows, punches, knees, and everything when they're fighting on the ground. So when I was at the police academy, I was there for a little bit over 5 years. A lot of problems that I saw with a lot of police agencies around the country is that they just restrict themselves to one type of martial art. When in reality, you're going to have to use multiple things because somebody such as Dr. Sandi, as small as she is, she's finding somebody as strong as me, big and strong. Um, she's going to have to resort to some dirty fighting, whether she's taking her thumbs, driving it into my eye socket, trying to grab my skull, headbutting, biting, and stuff like that. So we made sure that when we had a grappling program, that we actually do MMA, and we do talk about both, illegal strikes versus legal strikes. And I also refed for a little bit over 15 years. So the referee's there to keep it safe. So a lot of misconceptions, I think, with self-defense and what differentiates our school is that when we talk about reality, okay, everybody can teach martial arts. There's the sport aspect of it, and there's also the combat aspect of it. And then there's also the law enforcement aspect of it. The rules of engagement is a lot different for the military versus what it is for law enforcement. And then from each police agency, federal or local, each of them have their own type of use of force policy. So for us at the gym, we did a lot of self-defense classes, and it's not just like, okay, you're gonna grab my hand and you're gonna go ahead and like twist and then like strike. We're talking about realistic movements and the practicality of it. Like a 100-pound girl is it's going to be hard for her to beat somebody that's 200 pounds, especially if somebody's very athletic. And I know, I think with Dr. Sandi, I know that she's working with a lot of like victims, like actual victims, where they've been assaulted by multiple men. And some of these girls actually met when she hosted a self-defense class, I think, with like was an award-winning HBO director for one of the big cases that she worked on a couple of years ago, where we kind of collaborated. And it was just it's very interesting is that a lot of these self-defenses, they're just there to pat you on the back and then give you this false sense of hope. One of these girls was saying that I think she was about five. She was like tiny. She was like 5'2", and then she was assaulted by two Division I wrestlers. They're over 6 feet. And I asked her, directly, like what, if she doesn't mind describing what has happened. She was talking about how one of the guys like covered her face with a pillow, and then they assaulted her. So the way that I like to do things, and this is one of the things that I learned being at the police academy, is that to do it. You know what I mean? It's like it's one thing to talk about theory, talk about concepts, but then when you put it into practical application, it's all about repetition. And I found it very interesting is that when I told her, "Hey, do you mind if I cover your face with like a jacket or something just to kind of simulate that, and then let's see if we can work it out." And I remember that she was kind of triggered, and a lot of these self-defense classes that I have done over the years, one I did with a black women's group. It's like a running group. I remember one of the ladies were, it's all fun and games when you're with your friends and doing a self-defense class because you get to hit. But then it got a little bit more serious when I asked, "Is there anything that they want me to show?" And I remember one of the girls, she said that she went on a date and then one of the guys like grabbed her by her neck and like slammed her against the wall. And and it was interesting because you can just see that it was coming back to her. But then I was able to walk her through it and to talk with the spectators and the people that were involved. And then we talked about like what would be realistic, for them. So for me, when we have especially like with anybody that walks into tag or any time that I'm able to get in contact with anybody, the biggest thing is I want to make sure that I kind of empower them, not with like a false sense of hope, but just like a realistic sense of like what's actually going to happen. So I see that a lot of times that everybody, especially when I go into the police academy, we ask people like how many people have been in a fight, and then there's only like a handful of people. And then when we actually do go to the mat room, we basically use Sims. They start getting shot. It's interesting. It's like you hear about that fight or flight. I see that all the time. I also see it a lot of times with my athletes that, that you think that they're well prepared. They're hitting the pads right. They're sparring. They're moving around. And then guess what happens? They're more prepared physically, but then when they jump over the rope or they go into the cage, mentally they lose it. So that's the same exact thing that I tell people that 90%, of survival is basically mental. The physical stuff is going to be easy. Girls have sharp nails, you have teeth, you know what I mean? And I think with a lot of attacks, I think yeah, I remember Dr. Sandi, she actually helped me. She pulled out statistics of people that were getting assaulted. And I also had a friend in the FBI that gave me uh, research that they have done. They said that most of the time that these attackers do attack these women, when they're fighting back and they're hard to assault or pin them onto the ground, most of these attackers they give up. They just want easy prey. So we always talk about in law enforcement, you talk about command presence. There's a big difference between command presence versus somebody that's brand new out of the academy with the shiny shoes and the way that they talk, their demeanor. So the same exact thing like with women, having that confidence and having that I guess that reassurance that you've done some type of physical movement where they know that somebody that's much bigger than them is going to be much stronger. How can you win? How can you survive? And a lot of the times, especially for law enforcement, and then when it comes to self-defense, and people, I don't know how true this is, but like for police, it's that, drop your weapon, because now everyone has the video cameras, right? So you basically being able to verbalize something and then basically then you're taking a shot, you're going to be more protected in court versus not saying anything. Now, on the other end, and this is something that I would ask Dr. Sandi because I know this is her expertise, is that when women are being assaulted, people they tell the women or people that are getting assaulted to scream fire versus help. I don't know like what that how that wall entails, but this is something that that I'm going to work with Title Line Consulting Group to help me really take like the self-defense classes that I teach to the next level. I've also reached out, people have also reached out to me. I know like these little self-defense tools. I know one that I like is Go Guarded. It's like a little ring with a little shank. When I do these seminars and I did some videos online where we talk about when women are running that they have this little sharp object that they can keep on their body, where it's actually attached to the finger versus just holding like a dagger, because what happens under stress, people kind of freeze up, they drop things, but over here it's connected to you. So those are one of the tools that I use when I go to the self-defense classes.
Amazing. And thank you for such a wonderful response to that question. I think for a lot of us listening to you right now, I'm sure a lot of administrators are thinking to themselves, okay, so how do we get someone like you that's more realistic, that's more tactical, to really make the scenarios real? I guess how prevalent are those types of gyms in the different states? I know that myself, I've seen and I've spoken to different gyms that really shy away from that tactical kind of, approach of things. They kind of like like you described it, more of the fun type of workshop for females to bond and have fun. And they might throw each other, a little bit, but there's no real examples coming from the groups. And definitely there is no reenactment of any type of abuse or assault. And I can share that in seeing Chris do this in the past for different things that we've worked on together, it is very emotional. And I think having Ted and I Consulting Group with TAG Muay Thai work together has been very beneficial because of the fact that I recognize when somebody can potentially be triggered. I make sure that I speak to the individual. We have conversations prior to. So it's almost as if there is a two-step process in order to implement a prevention education program with self-defense with a group like TAG Muay Thai because of the fact you want to almost have a conversation prior with individuals that may have been victimized to understand, hey, are you going to be okay? And then second, will you be okay to share? And then third, if you do share, please recognize that you might get a little triggered, but I want to remind you that you will be safe. Um, and so, Chris, that brings me to that question of how often can or how likely is it that someone can, from a university or K through 12 school district, look for a gym like yours, or is it better just to reach out to Tag Muay Thai? Like how can we do this? How and is it out there?
So, it's like the guys at work, they have kids. So they always reach out to me and they always ask me for recommendations. And, I'm going to be biased with what I know. I can't speak for anybody else. That's the PC way to talk about it. But people that know me in this type of industry with when it comes to sport fighting, and then also self-defense and tactics, that I'm one of those guys that doesn't really care about what people think. I always give everybody the analogy that, when you're leading the race, you're not going to go ahead and look behind and see what everybody else is doing. It's like I only know through my expertise and what I've seen and what I've done. And because I'm very passionate about teaching, is I always want to make sure I do what it takes to win. I know it takes a lot of repetition to do it. Um, I think the things that I tell people is to see what's out there locally, right? Um, and then from there, then compare. Reach out to Title IX and then ask specific questions about self-defense. Like, is this person just a martial artist? And not saying that martial arts can't defend themselves, but it's going to be a lot different than getting blindsided or being hit, with a bat, without you looking at it. And then do they teach like that combat mindset? Do they, there's a lot of things that entail into it. So I think one of the things I think right now, I think Title IX Consulting Group, they're putting something uh, together for like self-defense and Cleary and law enforcement. It could be one of those things that you maybe reach out to them, see what they have to offer. And then again, I know that you guys are very confident in what you're doing because of the expertise. And then especially if I'm working with you guys as well, it's like I have so many friends where we do so many different things for the community, and then kind of compare with what you see, and you can compare. And like when people come to the gym, they see that we're a little bit, we'll say a little bit more expensive. And then there's people that look for budget. If you're looking for like savings, a budget for your program, then Title IX is not the way to go. But if you want like realistic training, you want the best of the best, and you're very confident in like the abilities of the company, then you obviously go with us. Like how much is it? What you save like 20 bucks, 100 bucks, whatever the pricing is. I don't know how you guys structure it, but I know my worth. So when people come up to me to the gym, they enjoy the gym, they see all the good reviews, and then they ask me about, oh, can I knock down the price? No. It's like you try to buy a Lamborghini and you basically want a Hyundai pricing. Go somewhere else. But if you want to really get the best and know for a fact that you're getting best in the country, and I can tell you that, you look at what tag is, and you look at the background of all the people that work at Title IX, you're going to see that even internationally, like, we're very competitive internationally. But nationwide, over here in the US, but pretty much it's a no-brainer. So, like I said, I'm happy to pair up with Title IX because I know that they're best, in the nation, and I know that you guys are going to expanding worldwide. So I want to be with a company that is respected not just nationally but internationally.
Thank you. That was really nicely put, and thank you for the confidence. Yes, our team has been growing, and we have our sights on expanding internationally for the self-defense aspects, education, prevention, policy, procedures, all of it. Um, and I think one of the things that really like resonates with me that you describe is going in there to really, really teach it, and regardless of the price. And I know some admin out there, we're losing them right now because they're thinking, oh my God, the price, that's everything. But really, it's what's the price of safety? What's the price of really providing that confidence level to women, to children, and I say women and children because at the end of the day, over 90% of the time, perpetrators are men. But of course, men as well need to know how to do these things to protect themselves because men can also be victims. And it's very important to recognize that I know with Tag Muay Thai, you are very respected internationally. That's why you have elite fighters coming to your gym from all over the world. And I've had the privilege of meeting many of them, and we're starting to interview them as well, simply because there's so much to learn and gain, especially from just watching how that mentality of a fighter really is when they come into the ring to fight someone they've never met, to fight someone that might be bigger than them, stronger than them, that might look and have a bigger presence in them. And that really, at the end of the day, can be something that women, vulnerable populations, children can learn from. And so that really resonates with me with how you describe that. So thank you. I think my next question, which will probably be one of our closing questions, is how do you ensure that in your gym, I know that in your gym you're teaching men primarily. That's your clientele. There's a lot of women as well. You have women's groups, which is great. But the bulk of your clientele is men, and these men are learning the skill set of how to fight, of how to do grappling moves. And I've seen cases where some of the men that have done mixed martial arts, not at your gym, but at other gyms around the country, have used those skills against a victim. How do you teach skills like this that can potentially be a negative and used for all the wrong reasons? How do you use those skills and teach those skill sets to avoid the negative parts from happening?
The good thing with tag, like over the past few years, is that it's just like any business, right? You have the highs and lows, you have the troubled students, you have the staff that kind of sucks. Um, we have a lot of community events. So whenever we do the potlucks, it's to talk about like respecting women and children. So when we have the potlucks, when I do my announcements at the end, women and children go first. Everybody else, you go to the end. We have these big events with all these seminars. The people that have flown in to us or that have driven like 2 hours, they get their pictures first. You know what I mean? It's like, ladies first, children first. It's that type of mentality because this generation, and I think that's the funniest thing is that, I'm very old school. Um, and my personality shows it. Like if people really know me as a person, they don't really care. I tell people straight up, I embarrass them. I embarrass myself. I don't really care. It's just one of those things that like just the mannerisms, I guess, or like just having manners with women, respecting women, that type of stuff. And then, it was interesting. We had some women's back in the day at the Sportsplex days. One of them happened to be like a ring girl. Some of them happened to be like strippers. So they would come up with like wearing all these stuff where it's a little revealing. And then I would just basically tell them like, hey, have a little bit more respect for yourself, especially when you're training around these guys. Go ahead and cover yourself up, and just like small things like that, that if my daughter, is training at the gym, or my wife, I would basically tell them like, listen, like, have a little bit more respect for yourself. This is a training environment. And I think when you have like the same goal, like everybody that walks to that door, they just want to improve. It doesn't need to be a circus, The circus can be after the training. Like let's focus. Um, and then, the good thing is that we have a lot of people that are that work in HR. There's people, for instance, like you. Um, you guys are the ones that make the gym better because you see things that I don't see. And because we are a community, we have, I think it's like the five girls at the front, and then we also have some of the women coaches. And then the kids program, I think we have majority of them girls. And then, of course, the moms train. So I think when you have a community that's like well mixed and it's more of a family environment, I think a lot of people that walk in, they say that they can see that everybody respects each other. They can tell that the community is really close, even though there's pro fighters, even though you still have those younger kids. Um, you still got to be able to put them in check. When you have somebody that's like say a hard ass, that doesn't put up with a bunch of crap, and they look at you like a mentor or like a father or just like that type of leader, is that everything that comes out of the mouth, everybody listens. So I think over the years I learned to kind of watch what I'm saying, um, and the way that I treat the women. Like I treat the women the same way. If I see one of the guys, uh, doing something that's inappropriate, we had a situation with one of the coach's son. He was being inappropriate with one of the girls. So I was told right away. I talked to you. I talked to somebody that worked on HR, and right away, like the next day, we took care of it. We basically told him that he's no longer allowed back in the gym, and it was a tough situation for me because the coach has been with me for, I think, for over 10 years. He's one of the students, and he was upset when I told him, and he wasn't sure if he was going to come back to coach. But luckily, he basically just said that his kid was dumb, and he understood it because we're very firm, and then he still trains with us today. So I think when you have the right people around you to help you with areas that you're not too familiar with, you always go to somebody that's much smarter. Like, I'm not going to surround myself with like people that are dumber than me. Like the way I look at it is like I'll be the dumb person and I have everybody else that's around me that's able to kind of help me.
I think that what is so valuable about what you just described is something that most administrators, I hope, are listening to, which is this isn't just about the gym. This is about a system of culture, that when that culture and that leadership is there, there is almost like a no tolerance, right? I mean, I know not all policies are supposed to be no tolerance, so I'm not advising that or recommending that, but there is more of this vibe within a system that that culture means, do not do A, B, or C, because if you do, there will be a consequence. And we will take that seriously because we do frown upon that behavior. And that's one thing that I definitely enjoy seeing at Tag Muay Thai. And yes, Chris and I have a very close relationship, and I am advising behind the scenes on certain types of behavior, such as that example with that little boy and I will share that little boy was grabbing the butt of another little girl using a lot of the skills he had been learning within Tag Muay Thai against other kids, kids that were smaller than him as well. And it was becoming dangerous. So, of course, we have to take action, and Chris did do that very diligently and thoroughly. But it's the same thing that happens within administrations for schools, universities, when we have a lack of action. That's where we have problems in the Title IX space and also in the Title VI space as well. If there's no investigation, if there is no one looking into it. I know Chris asked the questions. He was looking to see what was going on. And then there's an outcome. Um, so again, I think speaking to the culture of your gym speaks volumes. And it's something that folks can take away from this conversation and think to themselves, okay, there is a parallel when we look at systems within the education system as well. Um, do you have any final words you'd like to say to Title IX administrators or parents or students out there, females, girls, anyone?
So I think like when it comes to administrators and then owning a business and then dealing with the government moves so slow. Um, for me, the I guess the fortunate thing for me is that I own the gym. So, usually when people talk to me, they ask if I have any partners that are in the business, but I just basically tell them I'm the sole decision maker. So any changes that I want to do, I do it immediately. We had kids that and adults that fought on Sunday, Monday. Guess what? I can change what we do to make them better. I think when it comes to like consulting, because I know that Title IX deals with a lot of universities, I know that the biggest frustrations of being a consultant is basically giving people advice and them not doing anything with it. There's a reason that you're paying money is so that you can improve. So it's the same thing I tell anybody that comes into tag, I tell them, let's go ahead and play a game. I said, you're going to pay me. I'm going to tell you how to get better. You do it, and guess what? You're going to get better. I think I think a lot of hesitations, I know, comes down to funding, and then when there's so many hands in the cookie jar, it's one of those things. It's hard to change a system. But then if I know what they're doing is wrong and I have the expertise, why would I do what they're doing? It takes a lot of, I won't say a lot of courage. So I think like with administrators, if you know that there's something wrong and then that you do believe something is correct and you want to make the change, then someone's got to have the guts, or the balls to like step up and make those changes. And it's hard for people to do that. But I know a lot of the schools, you're dealing with, backlash from somebody that's above you. And it's like, how do you convince them or show them that, hey, this is the way that we need to change to be compliant? So I think like working with Title IX, I know that's their like I don't know if you guys know too much about Dr. Sandi. She's a double PhD. Like her thing is compliance. So why wouldn't you listen to somebody that is an expert in that field? And the whole thing with it is like I think she's been in this field for a while, and she's worked with a lot of universities and campuses, and she also does like expert reports. They're smart enough to basically tell you what you need to do to make a change to actually help all the faculty, the students. But for girls and women, I always tell people that to go out and seek different martial arts, look at different self-defense classes, and really think to yourself, like, it works against your friend that you brought to this little self-defense class. 220-pound girls. Oh wow, this looks like it's going to work. But in reality, go ahead and imagine that you have somebody that's 180 pounds that's strong. Is that technique going to work? And if you're relying on a technique versus aggression and the right mentality, you're going to be in a world of hurt, you know? And I can tell you that my journey with martial arts kind of took off when I was overconfident in my abilities. I remember it was like 1997 in El Monte, California. And it was one of those things that the guy was 15 pounds heavier, had 7 fights. I was so confident that I was going to whip him. And then I got my ass beat. And I can tell you, it took me 3, 4 years just to kind of go through that journey and figure out what I need to do to become better. You know, most people, they probably would have just quit and said, hey, you know what, this is not for me. But it's one of those things that I had that type of mindset to keep going. So if anything, you think about what you see on the movies, what you see in some of these self-defense classes, be very realistic. Is this really going to work? So I don't know. Those are just some things I think about in my head when I watch, stuff on the internet. And don't believe everything that you see on the internet also.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone. So for today, we thank you, Chris, for joining us and for talking a little bit more thoroughly about prevention and what that means for systems itself and for folks within those systems, especially like your gym and for educational institutions. So just thank you again, and everyone, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one.